Hi there, for all you sophisticates out there. This is not sophisticated yet. Maybe one day I'll actually invest in doing like real podcast stuff. But I thought I would jump aboard of and not do it as long or anything like that. But let me just give you a little background. I have been, a writer for a lot of my life since I was a child. Basically, worked for city papers, whatever. Did fiction writing, whatever. But I've done some self-published stuff, which is actually the way to go now. But I haven't really done anything in a while. And in that period of time, the last time I even published anything was in 2012. And today it's going to be 2025 in 3 days. But I'd been busy, just lost some, I don't know, interest or verb. I don't know. I had a lot of ideas and whatnot. And I've watched a lot of shows in the last years, and there's very few that I can actually address as being good in the sense of talent. They've been good in terms of entertainment, sure, kill time, but most of it is reboot, remakes, and sequel after sequel after sequel. It gets ridiculous now, for every exception, like the Nosferatu remake, because it's in a different look, it's color and sound, and 102 years later, that's different, and I look forward to seeing that soon. But there have been very few things like that have really resonated. That's why I've been watching old movies lately and reading books more, because at least I can find things that are still relatively unique upon themselves. But the modern way of doing things, I just haven't appreciated. But I have very much enjoyed experiencing most of Mike Flanagan's work, who's basically been contracted out to be a Netflix savior, because he's had some really good shows on there. The first one, I believe, was Haunting of Hill House, and then you had the Bly Manor and Fall of House of Usher. But the one that I think resonated more with me, because those three are, creepy stories about haunts, ghosts, and whatever. Yeah, okay. And it dealt with just basic shitty people. But the thing I liked about Midnight Mass is that it addresses a very important topic in religion and everything. And this is, like I said, I'm reacting to the reactions. I'm not reacting to the show itself. But I've taken a lot of appreciation to the reaction videos for the most part, because we know these are fake, unless it's a documentary, but we know, even those could be fake, but we know that this is fake. We know these are actors. We know we're going to see Zach Gilford in another show. In fact, I think he was just on another one, and right before that he was on Parenthood or something like that. I've always liked him. And, Aaron Siegel, or not Katie Siegel. She's, on these Bly Manor and everything after these shows. And so you have a perspective. But the one thing I've noticed about my reactions, as well as the reactions of the reactors, that it's kind of similar to the first movie that really did something similar, 1980s Elephant Man. I saw that when I was really young. We snuck in, and we thought it was about a comedy about an elephant, and we snuck in. We bought tickets to a G movie, snuck in, and decided to watch a movie that would traumatize me for the rest of my life, in the sense of we were devastated that we could see, and it was a true story, that how badly people treat people like that. And I think it motivated me to, eventually help out here and there at special education camps, whatever. And I really, I think it really made me an advocate. My friends definitely were affected. And every time I see that movie, no matter what, I know 3 scenes pretty much in that film that I've seen since I was 10 years old. And if I see it right now, I will bawl, just cry. I think it's, sense of helplessness, and you realize it does happen, the things that were happening. People treat people that way. And so you're very inclined to be affected because it's something you relate to, and you feel because you've seen it or about it. And so when I watched Midnight Mass, And I watch these reactions, and it doesn't matter who they are. They could be two girls, four guys, a guy and a girl, a married couple, platonic pairing, gay couple. I mean, a black, white, Asian, doesn't matter. There's been a lot of the same instant, visceral reactions to the ending. And I'm not going to be spoiling anything, because if you're watching this, you've already had some interest in this episode. But the ending is what I've termed pretty much, arguably, if not one of the 3 or 4 most traumatic scenes ever filmed that's fictional. Not a real scene of a real thing that we're really watching in real time or recorded real time. These are fake people, like fake characters doing a fake scene that still creates this traumatic kind of visceral reaction. And I've always thought, wow, that's just so weird how we can react that way. Now, Elephant Man had truth to it, even though it's still fake in that moment. But I've realized as I've gotten older, short story, my life had been, I think, pretty altered years ago, right out of college. I had met the woman I've, to this day, still deemed the love of my life. And I would have, just the things that I would have done to make sure her life was perfect, or to protect her, or, whatever, was very profound. And, fortunately she didn't pass away, but we were denied anything, because of certain traumas that affected her, things that come home to roost from her past, and it just affected her, caused us to separate. She needed her room. It had nothing to do with me, I found out later. But we lost touch, and I remember, and it kind of ties into the midnight mass thing, because I'm sitting there watching, Aaron and Riley on the boat, and when they share their last moments where they tell each other they love you. Now, this young woman I was with was someone who, she's stubborn. She doesn't always, say what's what, but you feel things. And there was a moment where we were in my apartment, and she sat on the bed. We were clothed, you perverts. We were totally clothed. But we were sitting on the bed. She was sitting on the bed. I was sitting on the ground. And I was looking up at her, because I was sitting between her legs, looking up. And she had really long, great hair. Everything about her was great. She was perfect, like in every way. She literally was one of the best looking women on earth, and great human on top of it. So she's looking down at me with this blonde hair, and it's like a curtain, and it's like, and my face is in the curtain, so I can't see on my peripheral. All I see is her face looking down at me with those blue eyes and that big smile and those perfect teeth, and we didn't say anything, and just the way she looked at me, and I looked at her, and I felt good, and I felt like this is my person, And then I remember that same day when she walked to her car, I separated, and then she walked to her car, and I had the window looking down at her, and as she was walking to the car and opened the door, she did look up and just kind of waved, and my heart kind of like stopped, and it was like when I turned around, I said, I would die for her. Like, I knew in that moment, I knew I loved her beyond anything. And I knew I would take a bullet. I knew I would take a cancer. I knew I would, whatever, if I had to, I would dive in her place. So when I'm seeing these reactions, I think they come from a bigger place than just the shock of it. I think when it comes to the women, I see it because, I sacrificed a lot when mine ran and had to separate. And she told me, don't bug her. And I was willing to ruin my romantic life, I guess, for the rest of my life. Even though I don't compare anyone to her, I've never reached that apex ever since. And it's kind of like, it's a long time withdrawal, because I never had anything like it since. But it was like she represented something to me okay, that I felt when I saw this. It was that sense of, you know, I would do anything for you to protect you. And, she had intimated many times at certain stages that she felt the most safe with me. I always made her feel the most, because I knew about what had happened to her when she was younger. She had told me, and I reacted in a way that I guess was favorable, and it helped. And even when we reconnected later in life, when she had her life now, and it is what it is. But of course, now that life's different. So the what if of all what ifs, what if, that her thing had never happened? What could we have ended up? But it didn't matter when we saw each other. She would always say, "You are my protector. You're my safe. I'm safe with you." She was more safe with me than her own husband, she said. So it's one of those things where I think when you watch this, when you're a woman, and women are, let's be honest, guys, lie all you want. Women are always more loyal than men, generally. They love their girlfriend, they'll kill for their girlfriend. Like their best girlfriend, don't mess with them. They'll cut each other's throats, but that's because it's probably not quite where they should be. But if there's a loyalty level and a love level, yeah. And I've been friends with a lot of girls growing up and older, and God, some of them would be terrifying. Like if you messed with me, if you were a girl, they would threaten them. They'd say, "Well, I'll kill you." Even the love of my life, when we reconnected and became friends, essentially because out of necessity, she became like my little protector. I would date a few people, and she would like try to find everything on them to make sure, and like she would even try to friend them. Like she was always keeping an eye on them. Don't mess with my boy. And knowing her, I know her. She would have beat the crap out of somebody, and because she's tough, she was a tough girl. And so I watched like this, and I see Aaron looking at looking at Riley, and hearing him talk to her, and I want you to run. I want you to, and you're the love of my life, and I'm doing this for you, and it's not like a cocky. It's very sad and somber. She doesn't know what's going on quite yet, so he looks sad, somber, up, down, like at the end. And she's watching him tell her, just be safe. And I think for women, the reaction we've seen are multiple. I mean, they are more romantic normally. So I think just seeing that love exchange at that moment, you're like, oh, wow, this is just rough. Because you know what he is in that moment. You know what she's wondering. We know what's going to happen. Either one or both are going to die. And you're hearing this proclamation, and you see how much this man loved you and would bring you out here and say, please just run and please. I think it resonates with a lot of women just on that level, because it makes them feel like this is what I've had this in my life. I have this now maybe, and I really appreciate it because my man would do this for me. I've had it and I've lost it. A lot of people have said that, a lot of these young girls who have problems after, they, because their dad is abusive and whatever, or worse. And they say, well, it's because of that. And I've said, well, yeah, but you could also find women who had those same problems when they had great fathers, because they would have this supreme love and support and guidance, but they still hadn't been old enough to really go to the next stage and move on a little bit. And then their dad dies when they're 13, and they've lost the perfect man to them, and they can fall because they're searching for that again. They missed their dad. They missed that power they were given. And so I think when you watch this, you could see that it could go either way. I think women could say, God, I had that and I've lost it. I missed that person, or I have it, or God, it would just be so great if somebody ever did. Somebody would do that for me one way, or and I think there's just that pull. And then when you go further into it, and she says, I'll help you through this, whatever. I get that part. But it's when, he starts, when he dies, and the pain and the fear. People are saying she was scared in her crying. Yeah, but I think really it was devastation. He told me he was not lying to me. And so, like, this was true. And you realize this guy who I've loved tells me he loves me, tells me he's doing this to save my ass. He burns in front of me to make his point. I think it really connects with, it's like, Jesus Christ, you know? And I know most of the guys out there and most of the women out there. Well, it's not a woman cliche, but guys cliche all the time by saying, oh man, I'd kill for my woman. I don't think you would. I think I've met a lot of guys who are all, yeah, I'd kill. I've seen them get more pissed if a guy looks at them rather than running to their protection if a bus was going to hit them. Okay, let's just be honest. But I do know some that would have. I do know some in my lifetime that would have, for sure. And because they're still kind of together, which is ironic. I called that pretty well. Or they were really just tight, And I've been with women that I've cared a lot about since then. Still friends with most of them. But really, I don't think I've ever thought to myself at any moment with them when we were at our apex where I said to myself, God, I would die for them. No. If they see this, I'm sorry. I would protect them. If there was a zombie apocalypse, I would try to make sure I was always between the zombies and her or something. But or a bullet was shot, bullets were being fired, I'd protect, for sure. But just to willingly I would do anything and die, but I don't know, it never crossed my mind. Would I say it never would have happened in that moment? Sure, it could have. It just never conscientiously crossed my brain ever since. I've never had that thought of, God, I would die for you. No, but that day I realized my life was forfeit for her. I wouldn't have committed a crime or anything like that for her, but I would have, because I would have said something about her character and I would have lost interest. But, I think that's the big thing here. It's just that, I think for girls, women, it resonates with you because there's that, it's a vulnerability too. It's not a macho when a man is like, oh, I'll protect you. It's a vulnerability. Or I would die for you. It's a vulnerability. We're being vulnerable. We're saying you are so important to us that we're willing to put you first. It's not macho. It's not macho. You're not being a stud, and you might not want to admit it, even if but if you told a woman, I'd die for you, and you meant it, and you really meant it, and she believes that you meant it. And it's funny, even all those years later, when I told her, when it was after the fact that I hadn't told her. And then when we started talking as older adults, she said, I knew. She knew. Oh, she knew. So it's like, if you know, and you guys know that you would, you're vulnerable, because that's when it's like when I had a child for a short period of time, unfortunately short. That was the only other time for another human being, period, I felt that way, but it was different. It's your child. But even it's a vulnerable feeling knowing that you will put somebody else above you, and that their life is now, you've confirmed to yourself that, yes, I am not the most important person on this earth, which a lot of people need to start realizing. Stop taking yourself so fucking seriously, and the world doesn't revolve around you. But it's like when you put two people in that moment where you conscientiously make that commitment, it's big time. And I think women know it. And it's big on either side, but it's not a woman's ownership. It's not a thing where you hear women say, I'd die for you, I'd kill for you. It's not something that connects with their narrative. It's a guy's thing. And I think that's a big deal, because every time, when we get to the, the Riley point and whatever, it's like, I think guys react, because so many of these guys have been crying, and every time I'm bawling at the end, I'm choking up, and it's because it's like, when she told me all those years ago, don't bother me till I'm ready. Okay, well, she needed a lot of damn time to be ready, and we lost touch. And I would still every once in a while try to find her. once I actually did, and she told me she didn't respond because if she had, things would have been different because she was just things, and she would have probably left and come to me, but whatever. And yeah, so I mean, it's like, you get to a point where, when you have these particular folk that you would do a lot of these things for, when you see what Riley did and what he was willing to do, when I was speaking to my friend, I said, because I left her be, I left her be because it gave her control over somebody, a male in particular, that she needed. And I'm hard to control. I'm an alpha personality, but I gave her alpha with me. And I said, whenever you're ready, because her whole life had been abused by men and had no control as a child. And so I surrendered it, said, I'm going to give you the respect. And I remember telling her one day that if I ever had the opportunity to maybe go, because she had said once we reconnected, she had a moment, was upset about something, and she said, you didn't come back for me. You should have come back for me. You should have taken me away. And so I said to her, you said that, and you're giving me this idea that, what would I do if I had the opportunity again? And I thought about it, and I was like, I'd do it again. I'd let you go again. Because no matter what, I felt giving her away that little bit of power, so she felt control, was more important than me chasing her down and saying, come on, let's talk. And what could have happened? Will I say here on a recording what I feel? Yeah, I'll make it finally official. I think we would have made it. And we would have been fucking great. But it is what it is. But I'd rather, I'm good. And so when you look at Riley and you go, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to throw away my addictions. I'm willing to turn away my addiction, my craving. And I'm going to put myself in the worst position possible where there's no way that I'll ever survive it so that you can live or whatever. And I think that's why us guys just get wrecked because it's just, I think either these guys have felt that way about somebody, maybe the girl sitting next to them in these reaction video things, but or maybe even a mom, like a woman that was a great mom, and you'd be like, oh, I'd die for my mom, because maybe they sacrificed so much for you, and there could be that connection. Or it could be like we said, it could be, God, I wish I met someone I could care that much about, because it sounds like it might feel kind of good, and I think there could be a lacking there, so this is just my reaction. And I think the thing that Midnight Mass, that season in general, that series and that episode proved was that really good storytelling, good dialogue, and great acting. Sometimes it's not fake. It's actually sometimes just showing us real in a different body without the same effects, without the same results. I think it's just, that's all it is, and I think, I give kudos to everyone, and I'm just shocked that Miss Siegel didn't get at least an Emmy for that, because that, you got, I mean, what else is there to say? Anyway, well, that's it. I hope I didn't bore any of you that decided to take a chance and actually watch this garbage. Have a good 25.